Nice to be here. I'm very grateful. I'm going to talk about a project of reuse building for apartment buildings in Mexico City. So, yeah, well, if you haven't been to Mexico, it's growing each day by a minute, expanding itself into a very horizontal city. Today we're about 21 million inhabitants, and it's in the area of the valley, it's about 9,600 kilometer square meters. So basically, we're facing a problem of infrastructure. There's no way a city can actually connect itself with growing in a very horizontal way, as I said. So these are some numbers that are really interesting. So for example, it takes you 5.5 hours to cross the city. So I was checking numbers is what you make to Napoli from here. So imagine that, right? And the average, this here diagram shows the mobility. An average worker has to do more or less 2 hours each way to their house. So it's basically a nightmare. And only 4.7% of the people can actually buy a house in Mexico. They can afford a mortgage or whatever because of how expensive it's getting the land and the city. So we start to find out some layouts of how people have been looking around of apartment buildings throughout the last century, right? So Anna Puganer made this book about the kitchenless city. So at the beginnings of the century, of the 20th century, they were thinking of doing buildings without kitchens, right? So they saw a problem, I believe so. And then by the 60s, 50s, 60s, in Mexico and in other parts of the world, we started to build apartments only of 2 and 3 buildings, 2 or 3 rooms per apartment, because we believed everyone should get married and have kids and buy a house, right? So this is what happens then. I believe everyone can relate with that. So what happens at the end of the century? No one can afford a house, so you have to get roomies, right? So that's our life. Once you get out of your parents' house, you have to get roomies, otherwise you don't have a place to live. So we tried to find the needs of this new generation. What are the new generations that are looking for an apartment are actually needing, right? This is post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, sorry. It doesn't matter really. We 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we needed the same things. We needed to be in a good place with a good location, with a good connectivity, having the sense of belonging to a community. We were thinking of being more with friends, less with jobs, having this mindfulness, everything. We're trying to understand that we don't need to work so much, we need to have more time for ourselves, right? So we tried this building, I'm gonna show you in a little bit. But in order to satisfy all these programs, we created these small cells of all the things that actually these new generation people or try to find in one building, right? So we created this idea of new. New, it's in Catalan, it's nest. So basically, we believed it would be something where you can live, work, and play, right? This utopic idea of a building. But everything is tied with something that it's the most important thing about it. It's together, right? So in a sense, what we all need or what we are striving for is a community, right? So we need to create these forums for people to connect again. And these are all these amenities or places like you can actually relate to people. So in this building that it's an old building about from around the 50s, 60s, it was built. it was a little abandoned, um, and really not being used as it used to be. So we created a new program on that building, and we tried to fit all this new. I don't know why the laser is not working, but uh, in the amenities were basically on the street level, where all the co-workings, the restaurants, and the places to gather around. And on the rooftop, we created like a little soccer court, and a rooftop for barbecues, a podcast room, a TV room, places to meet and work. So in the left, you can see the old building. On the right, you get a sense of the new building. All the language, it remains the same. We basically tried to strive all the goodness of the building, all the language, the vertical language that the building had, and tried to make the neighborhood they didn't feel like a new building came into this old neighborhood. So as you can see, the building actually looks very similar, and we work a lot in the structure. Mexico has also a very big problem, and it's the earthquakes, right? So this building, we started to analyze this building before the last earthquake in 2017, and it was a bit damaged. So the layout of the left, it's how the building was built before the earthquake and before the intervention, and how we used basically the same axis, structural axis, and cleaned a little bit the layouts, and creating this cell that basically has what everyone or what this prototype of people need for a living, right? So I'm gonna show you a little bit more of the interior so you can see a bit more. So yeah, the building basically exists, and you can feel it's the same building throughout the years, hopefully for another 50 years. So you can see a little bit of the interior here. So there's the sense of understanding what these people need, how cozy the spaces should be felt, and where can they relate with other people. As I told a lot, this has been more than an architectural project, a very social project. We're trying to understand the people, what they want, how they interact, and it's been difficult, even though, to get them to interact. And if we as architects don't create these spaces for them to interact, I think we will struggle as society in the near future. So yeah, this is what we've been doing, what the building has been managing to get in the areas, and I can say that I'm very glad that actually this worked, even though the pandemic hadn't actually hit. We finished on December 2019, and we thought the building was going to crash down, right? And it went all the way around. It was incredible. People actually felt that that's what they needed. They started to do all the homework. People came from around the world, and now it's a very vivid building that actually people can work, they can play, they can do the leisure that they want, and they feel that they're very connected at a very low price. When I tell about the price, it's because we're trying to every day make these cells smaller, and we're thinking and making all these conclusions of what actually people need to live. Where is the border? Where is what can I share and what can I not share? Can I share the kitchen? I don't need to share the kitchen. Can I share the bathroom? All of these questions, we're all the time making focus groups and trying to understand these new generations. How much are they willing to share? How much are we striving for this shared community? So The objective is, and we're actually working with a lot new buildings for this model, this model to actually work in the city. We've got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of bad buildings hurt from the earthquakes and left behind. So I think this could be a new idea, a new generation of the urban fabric of Mexico City, and make people come together to the city center, because I forgot to say all of these buildings are actually in the city center, so it's going to be a lot more easier for people to connect to their jobs if they actually need that to happen. So, well, thank you very much. That's all.